This is Antitrust Code by Concurrence, and today, episode 2 with Fayrouze Masmi-Dazi from Frieh Associés. Hello, Fayrouze.
Hi, Nicolas.
It's great to have you today. Thank you for coming back.
Great for inviting me.
Today, I'd like to discuss with you a very interesting decision by the French competition authorities on Google. This is, I think, being decided on June 7th, 2021, just less than 10 days ago. And in this decision, the French competition authorities issued the first ever decisions on complex ad auction algorithm. So, you know, this auction algorithm, they are the one used in online ads. This is the first ever settlement with Google with a full remedy package, but even more important, Google confirmed that they will implement these remedies at a global level. So it's not only a French decision, it's a potentially worldwide decision. So certainly, these are historic decisions achieved by one competition authorities, but it also might reveal, I think, a strategic change in Google approach. Google claims it's only a pragmatic move, but how do you read Google approach?
Well, thank you, Nicolas. It is indeed a very important decision. And first of all, it is a big win for the French Competition Authority and a very legitimate recognition of its excellent expertise and work, long-standing work on the sector. As regards Google and its strategy, I think that it is rather a pragmatic way for them to keep control over the rules that govern the services. They did not anything but setting themselves the new rules that will govern these services for the future and obtained, after discussion, a blessing from the competition authority. It is indeed quite innovative. It is the first time ever that Google settles. It is the first time ever that it submits remedy package to a competition authority. And even though it is not even required by French law to submit remedies. So it is certainly a move, but it is a strategic move towards a maintenance of their control over the rules that govern their services. Now, regarding the another aspect of this decision that is very important, you mentioned that this remedy package is probably going to apply to the world. I mean, at worldwide level, and not only France. And Google announced before the CMA recently the same kind of strategy. This is certainly, and as usual for Google, a way for them to have the opportunity to leverage a decision before one competition authority before another jurisdiction. And regarding the issues that were at stake in the decision of the FCA, there are absolutely the same issue before a New York court. And now, a private action has been brought earlier this year exactly on the same issues. So it is likely that Google will somehow leverage the decision of the competition authority before this New York judge. And it will be hard for this judge to consider that the remedy package offered is not enough, not suitable, when the competition authority, and not the least the French competition authority, blessed, endorsed this remedy package. And should this be the case, should there be a divergence between the New York judge and the French competition authority, this will be the first time that a conflict of decision and divergence will emerge. And as you know, there are 50 to 100 action brought before competition authorities around the world against Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple. So if every competition authority takes a different stand, then it's going to be extremely difficult and probably very inefficient from an enforcement perspective. So the big challenge here is also a challenge of coordination among competition authorities and jurisdiction.
I really like that. So it looks like decision of a victory for the French competition authorities, but with your reading, we see that it's mind. You can read this differently, like a strategic move that taken by Google to upgrade his case before a New York court. Very interesting to see how you can double read a decision. And most importantly, imagine that the New York court does not agree with the French competition authority. Of course, New York court is not bound by the French authority. So Google might have to settle with another remedy. And then after the case go to Bogota, to Sao Paulo, to Moscow. So is there a risk that Google or the authorities might have to negotiate packages, different recommendments in so many jurisdictions?
Yes, there is certainly this risk ahead of us, and this is why coordination among authorities and jurisdiction is essential, and the actual tendency of the US and the European Union to get closer um, is a sign that our public authorities are conscient about this risk. It is a big challenge. It is also a big challenge for Google, for example, because it is certainly not easy to have one rule for one country. For a global player, it's quite complex, but it is probably more detrimental to the interest of the other market players using these platform and services than for Google itself, who may leverage and who has a vision, a global vision of how each authority is going to implement its own rule. So there is a need for convergence at worldwide level, and there are efforts to that in that direction, certainly in the International Competition Network, for example. Um, but it might not be enough, and the decision of the New York judge is certainly one to watch.
Very interesting. Okay. Well, now let's go back to the specifics of the case. Can you tell us what were the objections raised by the French competition authorities and what were the behaviors that Google accepted to change?
Yes, basically the case before, well, the objection of the French competition authorities are basically in relation to self-preferencing practices. This concept covers a variety of practices, but there were two main practices at stake here. One was the fact that Google was sharing price information with its ad server, and of course not with the competitors, um, and thereby favoring its own proprietary solution vis-à-vis competitors, biasing the competitive condition and to the benefit, of course, economically to its own um, integrated solution. So this was the first main issue. The second main issue is a question of interoperability between the services and the platform. And of course, within Google garden walls, all the solutions are fully interoperable. They're fully integrated. And there were differences and a real asymmetry of information and data exchange and use with competitors who were, of course, disadvantaged by this incapacity or difficulty to have access to the same level of data and information needed to compete. And this to the detriment of publisher. It is also interesting to see in this decision that publishers, for some of them who were complainants in the case, were directly impacted by this distortion of competition because they couldn't monetize their inventory to the point where they should have. So it is also a reduction for them of financial resources and therefore a case for fragility and economic fragility and also a case for private enforcement. The French Competition Authority invited publishers to take private action to claim for damages.
Yeah,
And in response, what kind of remedy Google has taken? Well, Google basically had two categories of remedies in its package. The first category is about sharing information, giving access to data and to data and use of data. It is not only a question of data collection, but sharing data collected and enabling the use by other operators of this information that is essential to have a competitive bidding process for online advertising. So this was the first set of remedies, and it's about 2/3 of the remedy package: sharing information, sharing data. And the second set of remedies is about self-restriction. Google undertook to refrain from using, for example, price information to the benefit of its own proprietary solutions. Google refrained from restraining the ability of publishers to contract bilaterally with other ad servers or to restrict their ability to do so. So this is how the remedy package is articulated. And what is interesting is that at the heart of this, Google acknowledges somehow that access to data and access to information is essential for a competitive process to emerge and to work. So, and this gives us another insightful information about the way competition law might consider the ability for an integrated system or integrated ecosystem to capture data and information and to decide who and how and when competition must occur or not. It is quite interesting to see that here the competition authority seems to consider that we are better off with sharing information and data than the contrary.
So you said basically that the case is about self-preferencing. And the word self-preferencing for me directly refers to two ongoing cases. One in the US with the App Store, Spotify versus Apple case, and the other one in the EU before the European Commission on the Amazon. So do you see any connection or any influence that this case could have on these two other cases?
Well, there is certainly an echo. It is a first stone that is placed by the French Competition Authority on its vision of how such practices, which are certainly shared by other GAFA, should be analyzed from a competition law perspective. It will certainly influence. There is also an investigation right now before the French Competition Authority on self-preferencing too, regarding Apple. And if this Google decision influences the French competition itself on the first hand, it will certainly have a lot of impact because Apple is a very specific market player, claiming that for privacy reason, a better control is asserted by one market player than several market players, and that privacy issues should prevail on competitive processes. So it might be that the French Competition Authority will have some kind of challenge if it wants to derive from this Google decision in the Apple case. Although there are lots of similarities in terms of practices that can be observed. And of course, the French Competition Authority influences at least the European Commission. It might be taken into consideration in the US. But the US investigation is quite advanced. I think we are expecting a decision rather soon this year after the hearing. So
yeah, so we can expect this French decision to be much read and commented outside Paris. That's great news. A good strike for the French Competition Authority and the chairperson, Isabelle de Silva. Let's go back to the specifics of this case. So you told us what were the griefs made by the authority against Google, but what are Google's proposal to address this issue? And do you think, more importantly, is this enough?
well, it is very hard to tell if it is enough or not. It is more a business point of view and a business perspective. But what we can say about the remedy package that has been endorsed, because it has not been market tested prior to being endorsed by the competition authority, is that it has been designed by Google. And there are certain statements that are quite unusual in this remedy package. But like, for example, the fact that this remedy package is valid for a period of 3 years, starting either from the decision itself or the day at which the remedy is effectively implemented. But Google specifies that the day at which the remedy is effectively implemented is to be notified by Google to the trustee. So this is quite unusual. Usually it is to the trustee and the competition authority who determine if and when a remedy is fully implemented and effective. So it's just quite surprising that it is the defendant itself who sets whether or not this is effectively implemented. So these are the kind of details in the remedy package that are quite surprising and that show that at the end of the day, the most effective way to challenge this remedy package and to see if it is effective and suitable to remedy the market issues is its implementation and the complaints that will probably be brought to the trustee as to this remedy package.
Now, let me ask another question to you, Fayrouze. Following the French decision, Google announced a new proposal for a remedy package, but this time in a case handled by the UK competition authorities and disregard their privacy sandbox. This package is currently being market tested, whereas in the French case, there's been no market test. So what can we expect from this consultation? And do you think this makes the future final decision of the CMA stronger from a business perspective?
Well, it's very difficult to determine whether or not it is suitable and to what extent. It is really a business view that could help, and that is the whole purpose of such market testing. Market test is a very efficient way to identify loopholes. So it is certainly an interesting initiative from the UK CMA, who is probably more skeptical than the French counterparts. But I see two challenges for the UK CMA here. The first one is that there is no such thing as a competitor for Google. So whereas usually we have interesting feedbacks from competitors and quite detailed, quite vigorous feedback from competitors for very legitimate reasons. Here, this will not happen. This is not about competitors to comment. So the feedback the CMA will receive will come from business users of these platforms and services Google provides, and they are limited to where they are active. So it will be difficult for the CMA to assemble the puzzle and have a global view similar to what Google's view is to some extent. And this is here one of the the main issue for public authorities. Somehow, the asymmetry of information of business users, such as other marketplaces using the services of Google, is shared by public authorities. They don't have the same access to information on how the market works and the ecosystem works. So certainly, yes.
That usually market test is a good thing for the legal certainty of decision and from the business efficiency of these packages or remedies. So let's imagine that I'm a competitor of Google, that I'm not. And I do not agree with these remedies because I think they do not go far enough. Can I contest them? What would be the action by competitors against this decision?
Well, regarding the French decision, I would say, because the UK did not yet issue a decision, regarding the French decision, in principle, a competitor could dispute it before the courts and dispute the extent of remedies endorsed by the authority in its decision, by disputing the decision of the competition authority itself. It is quite challengeable, but it is quite complex. As I said previously, the remedy package is a spontaneous move from Google, and it is not required by French law at all during a settlement procedure. So it is a first element of complexity that is not really usual. It is the first time a settlement decision is combined with a set of remedies proposed by the defendant. So this is the first point. And then the competitors have several obstacles ahead of him, such as proving it has an interest in contesting this decision. And to mention one challenge to be faced. So maybe for a competitor, if it ever exists, the best way to challenge these remedies is to complain about its implementation or non-implementation before the trustee and the competition authority for the time these remedies are in force. It is, in my view, the most efficient way to obtain clarification on the extent to which these remedies are suitable to some issues that probably have not been identified during the process because it has not been market tested. It is the first time settlements and remedy package is proposed. So this is probably the best and the most efficient way to dispute this.
So we can expect more actions before the authority or before the French courts. And I'm sure the authority is working on other FANG or GAFAM decision complaints. So we will certainly hope have you again to comment on the future digital decisions by the authority. Fayrouze, thank you very much for your insightful view on this decision. Thank you and see you soon.
Thank you, Nicolas.